Well, welcome to the online video track, how brands find audiences and how customers find brands. Before I introduce our panelists here, my co-presenters, I want to just introduce myself. My name is Adam Kleinberg. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Traction. We're an interactive agency here in the city. We were recently just named Interactive Agency of the Year by B2B Magazine. Also, this is my rig. I like to barbecue. And I thought it was an interesting way for me to start this conversation about online video. So, as you can see from my rig here, it's gas on one side and it's got charcoal on the other, which is really cool. And then last Father's Day, my kids got me that thing at the end, which is a smoker, charcoal smoker. And with a charcoal smoker on the end, you can make brisket, right? And if you've ever been to Austin or Texas and had like really good brisket that's been smoked, you know how good it is. So when I got this, I was obviously very excited. I wanted to go out and make some brisket. But making brisket and making it good is actually a very difficult thing to do. And what I observed in myself is that I didn't even think to go to Brinkman's, that's the name of the company that makes the grill. I didn't even think to go to their website. I didn't go to Google. I went straight to YouTube. And I spent 45 minends looking for videos, trying to find something decent. It took me like over an hour of surfing through it and combing through all these crappy handmade videos, homemade videos that people had made. And it occurred to me that this was like shame on Brinkman. What a missed opportunity to connect with me as their customer, right? But not having that discoverable video that I would have used to learn how to make a brisket, right? It's becoming more and more how we consume information, and with broadband being ubiquitous, it's really becoming a seamless part of our digital experience. I've heard a lot of people in the industry describe digital and online video in particular as effective because it's a lean forward medium, right? We lean forward when we're on our computers. So that infers that it's more impactful. But I would argue actually that the reason that it's more effective is because it gives us opportunities to lean back while we're leaning forward. All right, does anyone remember advertising? Before digital, before we got obsessed with click-through rates and conversion rates and CPMs and CPCs and CPAs and CPLs and whatever, advertising used to be about perception, persuasion, motivation, desire, right? Video gives us the opportunity to bring that back to advertising. I think that's a really exciting opportunity. I call this the online video continuum, right? Most of the conversation I see at conferences I go to, articles I read, tend to fall into two camps. We either talk about pre-roll, right? Which pre-roll is what we've always done in advertising, right? We buy spots in front of content. So we talk about that because it's what we know how to do as advertisers. And branded content, creating your own content. And I think we talk about that because everyone in advertising really wants to work in Hollywood. Right? But in between that, there's all these different opportunities for us to connect with customers and use video to our advantage as brands. And it's something that I think we all should really take a deep look at. And the presentations that our panelists today will show are different ways that they're using that. There's new ways of catching people while they're leaning forward through social media, through mobile, through native placements. This is some examples from a campaign that Account Temps recently did. Account Temps places temporary accountants. My client's not in the room, are they? Well, being a temporary accountant is kind of a boring thing, right? But video offers the opportunity to, when we lean back, to actually make that kind of interesting and exciting.
Okay. Loch Ness Monster, giant squid. Giant squid. Giant squid, Yeti. 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 Sasquatch. Yeti. Yeti. Bob. Bob. Yetis don't understand month-end reconciliations. They never will.
You know, there's also owned media channels. I think this is really interesting. If you look at Coca-Cola, right? They've redesigned Coca-Cola.com to be a content portal. And a key part of the content that they're producing and sharing on that is video. Right? And that video content is really well-produced stuff that's just focused on online and being distributed online. Whether it's Usher talking about their Pay It Forward program, whether it's music, the 2 Chainz Duffel Bag Boy reverse cam. I don't even know what that is. But music that they're sponsoring, from Vitamin Water and promoting that. Whether it's polar bears making love. Video is a key part of how they're reaching their audiences and telling their brand stories and engaging people, right? There's also new opportunities with what I call experiential integration. This is a program Adobe's done called Real or Fake. Right? It's a game that they produced that lives on Facebook and on their website, right? And it started off with photography, right? Because Adobe makes Photoshop, and we would challenge people to see whether a series of images were real or fake, right? And had tremendous engagement. But now, because video is becoming so ubiquitous, we're able to actually challenge audiences to see if videos made with other Adobe products are real or fake. Like this one. 1,
2, 3, 4, 5 minutos.
So what do you guys think, real or fake? I like that. Mix it up a little bit. That was real. How about this one? It's fake, you're right. Good job. So like I said, everyone here is going to talk about more opportunities and how they're using video and how brands are making use of video online today. But before I introduce them, I want us to just kind of leave with one last thought. I was at South by Southwest last year, and I got to see a marketer from Procter & Gamble speak. And she was doing a presentation on branded documentaries and talking about how and why Procter justified the investments that went into making an entire documentary. And she said, at P&G, we're using as a metric, does it make you cry? Right? And when you think about the power of an ad that makes you laugh, or cry, or think, right? Or a story that we tell that connects with you on that kind of emotional level, and you think of the impact, right, that has, the returns are limitless. We tend to just focus on reach, but video allows us to take that reach and magnify it with impact. So with that, love to introduce our panel today. We've got Dave Segura, the CEO of Giant Media, the lovely Jane Barrett, Director of Marketing at Zeusk, Neil Perry and Dave Toner from PhotoBucket and Poptent. And Dave is going to talk first.
Good to go. That's close. That would have been embarrassing. Viral video right there. Okay, that seems like it's working. So we're going to talk about a few things. I think you're going to get a nice cross-section from all the speakers who are going to highlight different aspects of video and the discovery experience. What I want to start with is, you know, a general point, maybe Captain Obvious point here, but, you know, video is obviously exploding. You know, there's a lot of dollars moving in that direction, and I think it's just because, you know, media buyers, both on the agency side and the brand side, are really waking up to the reality that there's really such a rich story that you can really tell. So to that point, there's a lot of different formats for video right now. A lot of them that we're probably all very much accustomed to include what I consider at least to be traditional, and that's pre-roll. You know, I come from a background as a publisher where I was an executive at a place called comedy.com. The reason no one's heard of that is because, you know, Funny or Die was out there also. So it was what it was. But one of the things that we've really seen that I'm really personally excited about is the emergence of what you've probably heard quite a bit about recently, and that's native video. For all intents and purposes, what it really means is that it's video that doesn't run within ad rails, and it's video that is typically a standalone unit that doesn't, to Adam's point, run against someone else's content. So these aren't spot buys, and I think that's kind of cool. Also mobile. Mobile's obviously a new emerging category where I'm very excited because the engagement, you know, in terms of secondary actions, whether we're talking about video sharing or, you know, email collection or even clicks back to microsites, are just very immersive. It's a high share of voice environment, and both on tablets and smartphones there's a lot of activity. So video to me is a very diverse, you know, new type of unit and discovery, and it really can happen in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. You know, one thing that I gravitate towards, at least on my side, is to really focus on native and mobile. And the reason being is that, at least in my daily life and in my company, what we really focus on when we think of video is a world where content is branded. We're part of that equation. And what's happening in most instances is that the content is at least 30 seconds long. Oftentimes it's part of an episodic series, and it's not unusual to have content as long as 10 minutes. And in fact, we've, you know, even seeded content which is 45 minutes in length. So we've really kind of seen that all. What we're seeing is that for that type of long form or branded content, I would argue that what makes sense is typically native video or alternatively mobile. And pre-roll's awesome. I think it's really scalable, but in my mind it works a little bit better for, you know, 15-second spots or lesser. Here's an example, I think, of mobile viewing. Just wanted to kind of give you an idea what that experience looks like. For the most part, in terms of discovery and consumption, the way this is typically happening is that it's happening in a context where it's either mobile web or it's in-app. So it might be on an application, for example, like Pandora, or it could be on, you know, just the mobile inventory specific to a site like Bleacher Report. And from a discovery standpoint, what the brand really wants to be is, you know, to be everywhere. They want to be on multiple platforms. They want to be discovered on, you know, something like a tablet, and then they also want to be, you know, something that's being viewed at work, you know, on your desktop. And I really do think that's where these things come into play. One obvious point that I think that a lot of people are experimenting with on the technology and ad tech side, in addition to the brand side, is that they're trying to think through what it means to have a small screen. The obvious drawback is that there's less real estate. The obvious positive, I can tell you, is that it's an immersive environment where share of voice tends to be near 100%. So, you know, consequently, I think the engagement is really quite high. Not every brand is diving into this head first at this point, but I really do think that in a period of 18 months to 24, it's quite possible that the predominant form of video viewing will be on mobile, both tablets and smartphones. Okay, so I guess one thing that, you know, I'd like to caveat this by saying is that pre-roll is awesome. It has its place. It's still, from a number standpoint, the predominant form of video spend. You know, when people do talk about native video, you know, there's a tendency to talk about that as that it's obliterating everything else. I personally don't think that'll happen overnight. But what I will say is that I feel that when you think of video, you could argue that it's a lean-forward experience, but branded video, and specifically a discovery that's a native experience, is going to be that much more, you know, enticing, that much more lean forward, if you will. So there's just two examples we wanted to put on the big board for you. I don't know how many folks in the audience actually saw the Dollar Shave Club video, but it was quite popular, as a lot of you do know. What was really unique about that is that there was a very rich story to tell. The CEO both, wrote and starred in his own video. So it really was an authentic kind of story that was meant not only to kind of capture the brand's spirit, but, it was a labor of love. He was really passionate about that. What was unique about this is that I know that he didn't spend any advertising dollars in a traditional way. He invested, just a small amount to partner with, our organization. But I think what he was really trying to do was to do something that was going to be in context and be discoverable from the standpoint of the main, user, kind of experience level. So, just to clarify for all of you that maybe don't know what, native video really is, it just really means that the discovery of the video and the content tends to happen in the main body of, the sphere. So it could be something as straightforward as a sponsored story, which is really an advertorial, or alternatively, it could be something where, like, if you're on a publisher, if there's a content river that's constantly being updated, maybe programmatically, every 3 articles will have almost an interstitial, like, embedded unit in between it. So that's really what native is. It's very kind of, very similar to what people probably called sponsorships, like, 15, 20 years ago. Another example I think that a lot of folks like to talk about too is something that we're all familiar with, Old Spice. I mean, they continue to this day to produce just incredible and engaging content. And really from a brand strategy perspective, I can tell you that not only Old Spice, which is, P&G brand coincidentally, they're really trying to become part of the story. In other words, the holy grail probably always has been for an advertiser to be something that could be a genuine part of the conversation. But I think one of the cool KPIs about this industry is that, we've basically have moved to a model where we're trying to stimulate user behaviors, like video sharing, for example. And I think the reason video sharing is so important is that it's really more of a strategy. It's less just a buzzword. In other words, by stimulating over delivery, you actually create like that viral lift. That's where it comes from. It comes from 2nd and 3rd generation view opportunities. So I think that's really exciting to kind of see that. To further that point too, I think that we're seeing a lot of folks now focus on the value and, to the extent it's scalable, how to generate earned media. Earned media in a lot of ways is really the outcome, if you will, of your paid media investment. And in my opinion, the reason why, branded content is so exciting is that there really is a genuine possibility that you can get more than what you pay for. In other words, for my company and for a lot of companies in this space, the real KPI is not necessarily to deliver 1 million views, even if that's what the insertion order guaranteed. It's actually to stimulate delivery far and above that, with everything coming above that being classified as earned media. So definitely easier said than done, but the reality is that this really is the strategic direction of where things are going, which is why I think the future for branded video is so exciting, versus, let's say, more traditional video formats. To that end too, obviously, if you wanted to stimulate conversation and word of mouth, it does circle back or come back to brand lift, and I think that there's a lot of tools to help measure that out, but I think brands have been pretty excited with some of those initial results. One thing I think it's pretty cool too that, is a very obvious question when you start thinking about branded content is, who the heck's going to do it ultimately? I will say that every experience does vary. In a lot of cases, you have the brands that are very hands-on, kind of creating or at least producing these materials. In other cases, I would say the predominant way that it's mostly getting done is that the media buyer or the AOR is the one that's either creating content or taking control of that experience. And then in some cases, you also have vendors or publishers that are actually not only concepting, but taking responsibility for the finished material and then going about figuring out a way to distribute it. I think in the future you're going to see all 3 of these formats thrive, but the one point that I think that's really exciting, and I'd be really curious to know what people here think in the room, is that the future of content really is going to be, I think, more often than not authored by the brand, or at least on behalf of the brand. And we've had some conversations with folks where they're literally referring themselves as content producers, which it seems like even 5 years ago that would have been impossible for some of these really big box companies to actually say. So it's definitely exciting. I think one thing that's also kind of interesting about, this sort of video category, whether you want to call it branded video, big event video, or viral video, if you will, so there's a tendency to believe, like, these videos here, that it's very kind of celebrity-centric. I think, the news media certainly reports on these the most, but I can tell you that overwhelmingly, most branded content doesn't include any sort of integration with an established Hollywood star. I'd even argue even an established YouTube star. So consequently, the one point I want to get across is that whether we're talking about how to create or discovery, people don't necessarily need to be intimidated by the fact that they don't have a personal relationship with Matthew Broderick's agent, or that they don't know Peter Jackson on speaking terms. There's a lot of ways to get started, and increasingly, what we're hoping to see is that people classify and start to base success based off of those other metrics, like earned media, what was that viral lift, as opposed to, did my video generate like 6 million earned media or free views? That necessarily isn't the most realistic way to move the industry forward. But I think either way it's pretty exciting, and at least a lot of the folks on this panel and myself are really excited to be a part of it. And the one kind of constant is that change is always occurring. So the one thing I would argue is that it's interesting, I guess, to have me up here as the first speaker, but my whole viewpoint about video is that the bedrock or the foundation is certainly pre-roll, but it's already evolving. It's already kind of moving past that in some ways. And with that, thank you for your time.
Great. Next up is Jane Barrett from Zeusk.
How do I
just hit spacebar?
Hello. So thank you, David, for giving us a really nice overview of the sort of video world and its future and the various platforms. I wanted to talk a little bit today about the pre-roll itself and the sort of the learnings and the testings and the sort of best known methods that we've evolved around these. So just to talk a little bit about who Zeusk is. Zeusk is an online dating site. We're about 5 years old, and we are in 70 countries, and we are on 26 published languages now. And one of the tasks that I was given when I joined was get us famous. We want to be famous. Everybody wants fame. Personally, I want obscene wealth. But if they want fame, they can have it. So we tried different ways to see which would bring us this fame as fast as possible. And of course, television was the obvious answer. So we went out, we developed some lovely television spots. Off we went, we placed our media. And there was no doubt, as everybody knows in this room, television, if you want to build a brand, television is the fastest way to do it. It is, however, the most hideously expensive way to do it. So after about 2 years on television, we kind of looked at the ROI and looked at where we were in terms of awareness. And we did a brand tracking survey every quarter, so we could see it straight off the bat where we were going. And we looked at it and we were like, this is ridiculous. We're investing hundreds of millions of dollars of other people's money into a brand that really, is there a more efficient way we can do this? So we came off air and we decided to change our strategy, and we looked at pre-roll. And I don't know if I got any Google or YouTube people in the room, because I'm going to start quoting your facts. Okay, good. That means if I'm not right about them, they can't come after me. So one of the things we looked at was pre-roll. And what is its benefits? Can it replace television? I mean, is it as simple as that? Can you replace television with pre-roll? So we cleaned the slate. We even got new advertising so that we could judge really cleanly whether or not we could push unaided awareness. We set the highest goal we could possibly and go for it. So one of the things we learned is that obviously pre-roll actually is a lot younger. I think YouTube, and they're probably going to kill me, but when we looked into the figures of it all, they did a survey with Nielsen, and they concluded that 76% of people watching YouTube are actually under the age of 35. That's enormous. That's enormous. And bearing in mind their universe, so they claim, is 320 million, I think, or something in that region. That's an awful lot of people under the age of 35. Why? Because they're on the internet. I mean, it's as simple as that. The other thing is we also buy all our media in-house. So we could measure this and really understand if indeed we could push this awareness, push this ROI lower, and what the true cost of a CPM was, with no disrespect to any agencies. We monitored it all in-house in this really controlled, almost science lab environment. And we also felt that we're a website, they're on the website, they're watching video. It was much more of a natural environment for us than television. So we put it all to the test. We didn't spend huge amounts of money testing it because we wanted to understand that impact before we went full force. And what we did learn, and we put several measurements in place, was that, first of all, unaided awareness went up 318% in the first quarter. Even I was floored. I actually went back and challenged YouTube and said, I don't believe you, you're lying. Show it to me again. And then I made them send me the raw data, because I'm a bit cynical like that, and dug it into myself. But yes, 318% unaided. We then also looked at consideration and preference, the usual suspects, and consideration went up over 50%, which stunned me. And again, I asked for the data. I think they were getting a bit annoyed with me by the end, but never mind. And then we started looking into, okay, so we know it works. We know that it gives us fame. We looked at the CPM and various other cost metrics to ensure that it was actually not an expensive fame we were buying. And then we looked at what type of format performed better. And bearing in mind, we do all our buying in-house and therefore all our measurement in-house, I know this data to be true. We found that, so we did, with YouTube specifically, a buy which was the true view. So you only pay if people watch it beyond, I think, the first 5 seconds. Before that, you have the option to skip. I'm sure you're all well aware of this. We ran 15s, 30s, 60 seconds and 2 minutes to see which format would be the most, would get the most traction. And what we learned very fast, was don't bother with a 30-second. Our particular audience don't want it. And bearing in mind we're buying adults 18 plus, we're a website, we have to, a dating site, we have to be over 18, and we kind of capped it at 40 years of age, no offense to anybody in the room, myself included. And we found that 30 seconds bounced. They bounced immediately. It was almost obscene how fast they bounced. Didn't want to know. We took the same ad and we cut it down to 15, and we had a 22% viewing rate. Again, unforced. So what's the difference between a 15 and a 30? We're still running that research, by the way. I'll get back to you on that one. The 60-second also performed very well. Surprisingly, also over the 20% mark. 20%, I think, is the average viewingship for YouTube beyond the 5 seconds. So why does a 60-second perform, but not a 30-second? We couldn't understand that either. And then the 2-minute, I would advise anybody in the room, don't waste your money on a 2-minute, particularly to buy it. I think you can seed it. I think David probably worked some magic for you, but I would not personally go out and buy that as a long-form content. The ROI is not there for us. So we looked into, so we got 15s performing, 30s failing, and 60s performing. We came to the conclusion, and this is only us talking, really, that 15 seconds, people are like, oh, it's only 15 seconds, I can sit through that. It's funny, it's amusing, it might be entertaining. 30 seconds, they're like, oh, ye gods, no thank you. Bounce. But 60 seconds, you're telling them a longer story. And if you're telling them a longer story that's more engaging, people will sit through it. So there's this really fine line between here's a short, quick message, and here's that lovely long story, and then there's all that space in between which people don't care about. It's not long enough, and it's too long by the same token. So I think if anyone were to ask me, what is the future of branded content? I think it's twofold. I think it's really about finding your audience, testing them and understanding them, what they will respond to. they don't respond to a 30-second, but they respond to a 60. It's exactly the same audience we're talking about here. And I think the future is also about, I think David's point about multi-devices is important. However, I think mobile phone, again, there's no Google people in the room, right? I think the whole mobile phone thing, sorry, is still to be cracked from a creative point of view. So, in conclusion, I think knowing your audience obviously is very, very important. Measure your data, look at your data, and see what it tells you on a short-term basis, see what it tells you on a long-term basis, and really delve into it. I know that's obvious. You'd be surprised how many people don't do it. But anyway, thank you for listening. Just to keep you all entertained, we do have an example of the 15, which...
Yeah, I think you may have to use the mouse to click play.
Play? Oh, keep you all waiting, sorry. What, this little mouse here? Or is there another mouse? Sorry, Adam. I didn't say I was technically minded. I just said I'm a... Oh.
All right, let's find a guy on Zeusk.
I like a man whose idea of a weekend is just to head up to a log cabin, sip some cocoa, and then climb like 30 mountains.
I would love a guy if he could climb a mountain. Like, if we can climb this mountain, we can do anything.
Like he's going to inspire you to be the best Liz you can be.
Yeah, because I currently don't climb mountains.
No, you can barely climb the stairs at work.
Good point. I want, like, the warmth of his arms around me, but also the warmth of the delicious cocoa he's made.
It's got to feel like a bear hug, but not like he's going to snap you in half.
Exactly. And it's a really fine line.
He's like a mighty oak, but children can play on his branches.
Exactly. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's like 60 guys who are super outdoorsy.
Oh, wow. Strap on your boots. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Yeah, we can get in the tent and get some cocoa going.
Yeah, I'm just gonna find myself a regular mountain man.
Yeah.
And he should like cats.
Yeah, you should like cats. Big cats, too. Mountain lions.
And cute ones.
And cute ones. Little cute mountain lions.
I think to date that has over 6 million views, of which none of that was forced, and that's a 60-second.
That is a stunning case study.
We were stunned by it. We actually have to say we were stunned. And then not that we do have, I'd also, sorry, I got the next one. The 15-second was also, as I say, the 30. So in conclusion, know your audience. Thank you.
Gentlemen, Dave Toner.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Toner. I'm the VP of Marketing for PhotoBucket, which you may or may not know is still the largest dedicated photo site in this entire world. And it's part of my job to remind people in the world that that is the case and drive our users. And I'm going to present with Neil Perry, who is from Poptent, about a video campaign that we created last fall as we were relaunching our brand, and a new story feature, which is what we did beyond the video, really to drive engagement and tell a bigger, richer story than just what you can within video. So it is complementary and sort of a different angle on what David and Jane have talked about. One note I want to make before I get into the presentation is 10 years ago I was here and I presented at Ad Tech, and I was running online marketing at Dell at the time, and we were talking about paid search, and that was the new big thing that everyone was doing. And at the time, Dell was spending 18% of their massive budget in online marketing. And when I said that, people in the audience literally gasped, because other brands were spending 2% or 5% and just starting to move into online marketing. And when I said that of our online marketing budget, around 20 to 22% was going to paid search, the people from Google literally came up afterwards and thanked me for saying that, because no one spent 20 to 22% of their online marketing budget in paid search, and now people spend 70, 80%. And I feel that 10 years later, we're almost at that, that next frontier. So it was paid search emerging 10 years ago. Now it's content marketing, it's marketing content, it's video, it's native advertising, it's what everyone's talking about. So this topic is really exciting, and hopefully we're sharing some good insights with you guys. So So once upon a time, let's say 10 years ago when I was at Dell, my counterparts were spending $300,000 to create TV spots. They were putting unique 800 numbers on their vanity URLs and other things, but basically the tracking was irrelevant. You had to spend $300,000 to create a spot. You had to spend millions of dollars on TV to run it, but you had no idea what that was doing, and you really weren't engaging your audience in any way. It was a very one-way conversation. This is our product, this is our price point, come and buy it from us. But there was no dialogue with consumers at the time. And now, as we've seen in a couple of slides from the other presentations, brands and agencies are expected to be content creators. We are being challenged to turn ads into conversations, to create authentic and engaging narratives, and really to create a dialogue with our audiences. Adam showed the Coke site earlier, and I think that this is just amazing that they literally converted their entire corporate site into a storytelling venue. And there are hundreds of people in Coca-Cola marketing that are now editors and curators of content. They don't have the very vertical, you're in charge of TV, you're in charge of print, you're in charge of the research. They are all storytellers. And that's pretty incredible, and it is an indicator of where we're going as an industry. But we don't all have tens of millions of dollars, as Coca-Cola does, to create original content, to rebrand its site, and to activate hundreds of marketers against that. So, how can other brands engage their users, create content, and really create a dialogue beyond just the video? So, as I was mentioning, we have created an entire new user experience and are relaunching our brand and our site last fall and into this spring. And I was engaged with a local agency who I knew from past lives, and we started working together, and we had a really great concept, but I had a really small budget. And as we explored the concept, as I got my CEO and the board excited about this concept that we were going to produce, the price kept getting higher and higher and higher. And the activation and engagement, and how are we going to, as Jane talked about, what's the data? How are we going to prove that this is actually working, became more and more and more elusive. And I just had to walk away, and was probably 60 to 90 days into the engagement with this agency, probably about 45 to 60 days away from launching the site. And I had nothing, least of all job security at that point. So I had heard about Poptent, had seen some articles, and someone from Neil's team had reached out to me a couple of times before, dropped him an email. The head of sales happened to be in San Francisco the next day. We got together, and within 24 hours, I had created an engagement with them, turned over the brief, and I'll have Neil talk a little bit about what happens with Poptent after a client engagement begins.
All right, thanks. Because a lot of you maybe are not familiar with crowdsourcing, I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about the process that we go through on it. With crowdsourcing, we go to a client and basically take a creative brief very similar to what would normally be produced by a brand and given to their agency or production house. We then post the assignment on poptent.net on a landing page that talks a little bit about what the program is, and we notify our 60,000 creators. These filmmakers are located around the globe. We're in 140 different countries. They'll take a look at the announcement of the new assignment for PhotoBucket. A fraction of that 60,000 will say, I'm going to take a stab at this. I think this is a commercial I can make. They will then go into production. We usually give them somewhere around 30 to 45 days to finish a project. There are some instances where we do it in 21 to 25 days. But normally, if you give them that 30 days, it's the ideal time frame. At the 30th day, or the last day of the production schedule, all of the videos start to appear on Poptent. at which point we review them for appropriateness and then turn them over to the client for selection. And they'll go through them and decide which ones they want to use. The benefits to this crowdsourcing is that instead of getting one ad, which would probably be generated out of 3 storyboards through a traditional approach, you are actually getting dozens of finished film. So these are actual finished commercials produced on spec. Then you take the ones you want, and then you utilize them. If you need to make some edits, you can. So again, it's a high-quality video production, but you get all of this variety to look at and to choose from. And it's not choosing from a storyboard; it's choosing from finished film. And then finally, we could turn around, as I said, in less than 30 days very easily at a cost that's remarkably lower than traditional methods. David?
And I think the point that Neil makes about getting the finished spots is really important, because I was working with my CEO, who's very financially minded, not creative, and when we were with our agency engagement and the price tag kept going up and up and up, I was trying to sell him a concept based on storyboards and trying to get him to visualize that. Whereas, and with Poptent and our engagement, because of the time crunch I was under, within 28 days, I had 15 fully produced, finished spots that I was able to look at, probably culled down to about 8, and then sat down with the executive team, went through finished spots, and was able to make decisions based on, here's what we're starting with. We can make edits, we can cut different versions of them, but actually giving them completed 60 to 75 second videos to react to. These are just screenshots from the 3 finalists that we ended up with, and each one of them approached the brand, they approached the consumer, and the product launch that we were tied to in a different angle, in a different way, and activated our brand and our audience in a different way. And it was such an incredible experience to be able to produce finished or share finished spots and make judgments based on finished spots, different from anything I had done in my career previously. So we did choose to have these 3 fully produced and finished. And then one of the spots we liked so much, it was our first year with Mateo, and the producer that Neil was talking about, we narrowed it to 15 producers, not to the world. They all produced spots. She found a family that had captured their entire pregnancy in the first year of their baby's life through photos and videos, and edited and curated this beautiful montage of the pregnancy and birth, the first winter, the spring, and the first birthday. And when we received it, it was, I think, about a 75-second spot that told this sort of 18-month story. And it was so powerful, but almost too much for one video. So what we did is we created 4 30-second videos. I didn't know what Jane knew at the time when I decided on 30. And told the story from each one of these periods, and then with a call to action to go back to the landing page where you could consume each one of the videos and then the corresponding stories, which was the product that we were launching at the time. So here is one of those 4 spots. I believe it's the birthday. And it went dark before the call to action, but there was a URL that to go to our photobucket.com, our first year, or photobucket.com stories, and then that had the 4 video spots and the corresponding stories. And what was so great about that is, we've talked about Procter & Gamble and other bigger brands like We ran some broadcast, a lot of online, and if you saw that spot, you would think that it came from, a big brand and a big agency, and not the process where we had these creators producing these spots, and we never met in person with them until we had selected the spots, and then we talked about edits. And then this is just a quick screen grab across the bottom of the Stories product, and what PhotoBucket Stories is it's a way to, it's a digital canvas basically, where you thread photos, videos, captions to tell a story of a baby's birth, of your day in the park, of your trip to AdTech. And users were able to view the videos and then go deeper into the story and the content through the stories, and then they were prompted to create their own story. So it was a great way to go beyond the video, introduce our product, and activate users. And the results, time spent was off the charts. Everyone who came to this landing page spent more than 2 minutes there. 2,700 user stories were created within the first 2 weeks, and this was launching a brand new product in a brand new way, not just to post a single picture, but to combine photos, videos, and tell bigger, richer stories, and then user engagements. And we subsequently, this is my final slide, at the same time we were launching this, we partnered with Fox Studios, and a movie that they had premiering on Christmas Day, Parental Guidance, with Bette Midler, Billy Crystal, Marissa Tomei, and they created a story. So the same digital canvas that you can take, you can embed it on Facebook, you can tweet it, you can put it on your corporate site, and users spent 2 minutes and 45 seconds engaging with a movie. Part of the content was their 60-second movie trailer that they were paying to run across the internet, across TV, everywhere else. But no other media channel would deliver 2 minutes and 45 seconds of user engagement. And I think that shows really the power of what we can do with video and what we can do online, mobile, and other places, is drive that activity and that engagement beyond the video. Thank you.